I would like to debunk false claims in the article as How British Colonialism Killed 100 Million Indians in 40 Years. The article is co-authored by Dylan Sullivan and Jason Hickel. Dylan Sullivan is an adjunct fellow in the School of Social Sciences at Macquarie University, and Jason Hickel is a professor at the Institute for Environmental Science and Technology ICTA-UAB and a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. The article was published on Al Jazeera on December 2, 2022. The data used in the article seems to be derived from historical population censuses and economic research. The authors mention using census data to estimate the number of people killed by British imperial policies during the 1881-1920 period. They also refer to the economic historian Robert C. Allen and historian Madhushri Mukherjee, among others, to support their arguments about the impact of British colonial policies on India's economy and society. However, the specific sources for their data are not explicitly mentioned in the provided text. The article claims that British colonialism killed 100 million Indians in 40 years, which needs to be critically examined. Historical records indicate that India's population did not decline by such a massive number during that period. In fact, population data from the beginning to the end of the mentioned 40-year period contradicts this claim. At the start of this period in the late 19th century, India's population was around 238 million. By the end of the 1920s, it had increased to approximately 250 million. This population growth directly contradicts the assertion that British colonialism led to a loss of 100 million lives. The data underscores the need for careful evaluation of historical claims, considering comprehensive and accurate population records as part of the analysis. I would like to debunk the following points made in the Al Jazeera article. The claim that British colonialism killed 100 million Indians in 40 years. This is a very large number and it is difficult to say with certainty how many people died as a result of British rule. However, the article does not provide any evidence to support this claim. In fact, some historians have argued that the number of deaths was much lower. For example, the economic historian Angus Maddison estimated that the population of India increased by 100 million during the period of British rule. This suggests that the number of deaths due to British policies was probably not as high as 100 million. The claim that British rule destroyed India's manufacturing sector. This is also a contested claim. While it is true that the British did introduce some tariffs that made it difficult for Indian manufacturers to compete with British goods, it is also true that India's manufacturing sector was already in decline before the British arrived. The Mughal Empire had collapsed in the 18th century and thus led to a period of economic stagnation in India. The British did not help matters, but they were not the sole cause of India's economic problems. The claim that British rule created a system of legal plunder known as the drain of wealth. This is a more accurate claim. The British did extract a great deal of wealth from India, both in the form of taxes and in the form of goods that were taken from India and sold in Britain. This drain of wealth did contribute to India's poverty. The claim that British colonial administrators were aware of the consequences of their policies and yet they did nothing to change them. This is a difficult claim to prove or disprove. It is possible that some colonial administrators were aware of the consequences of their policies, but it is also possible that they were not. Ultimately, it is up to each individual to decide whether or not they believe that British colonial administrators were aware of the consequences of their policies. In conclusion, the article in Al Jazeera makes some serious allegations about the impact of British colonialism on India. However, there is no clear consensus among historians about the accuracy of these allegations. Some historians believe that the impact of British rule was much less severe than the article suggests, while others believe that the impact was even worse. More research is needed to fully understand the impact of British colonialism on India. While the article you've shared presents a strong perspective on the negative impact of British colonialism in India, it's important to note that historical analysis often requires a comprehensive and nuanced approach. Here are some counterpoints to consider. 1. Comparing deaths, the claim that British colonial policies caused more deaths than famines in the Soviet Union, Maoist China, and North Korea combined needs to be analyzed in the context of population sizes and historical circumstances of those regions. Such comparisons oversimplify complex historical events. 2. Economic impact. While the article highlights declining living standards and increased poverty during British colonial rule, it's worth mentioning that economic conditions can be influenced by various factors beyond colonial policies, including global trade, technological advancements, and social changes. 3. Industrialization. The assertion that British colonialism destroyed India's manufacturing sector is a partial view. While it's true that certain industries suffered, British investments in infrastructure, transportation, and modern industries also had some positive effects. 4. Taxation and trade. The characterization of British taxation and trade policies as solely exploitative oversimplifies the complex economic interactions between colonial powers and colonies. Trade policies were often driven by global economic dynamics and geopolitical considerations. 5. Famines. While famines did occur during British rule, attributing them solely to colonial policies might overlook other contributing factors such as natural disasters, regional governance, and agricultural practices. 6. Historical context. Evaluating historical events requires considering the prevailing norms and attitudes of the time. Assessing colonial policies based on contemporary moral standards may overlook the complexities of historical decision making. 7. Reparations. While the call for reparations is presented as a solution, it's important to acknowledge the practical challenges of implementing such measures, as well as the ethical questions surrounding the responsibility of current generations for past actions. 8. Diverse historiography. The assessment of British colonialism's impact on India is a topic of ongoing scholarly debate. Historians hold diverse viewpoints based on their research and interpretations of primary sources. In historical analysis, it's crucial to approach complex topics with a well-rounded perspective, considering a range of sources and viewpoints to develop a nuanced understanding of the subject.